Thank you for coming. And all the Guardian people are here. We're really pleased to have you with us. We want to hear about the Guardian and how you run it. First of all, we have a guest from the library. She was kind enough to bring over these bound volumes from the library.
I'm Linda Clausen. I'm Director of Special Collections and Archives here at UCSD. And one of the many things we collect, some of you have already heard this morning, are student publications. So things like the Triton Times, the Guardian, Sanskrit, Ujima, Black Voices, New York Quarterly, all of those can be found in the UCSD archives. And since the 50th anniversary of UCSD, when the Chancellor gave us a lot of money to digitize things, we've tried to digitize most of the student papers. So you can see now online the Triton Times from year one, you can see the Guardian, you can see Sanskrit, Black Voices, Ujima. I often think we have digitized all of the student papers, but then Bob gave me a copy of the Ravel Dissenter this morning, and I discovered we have not. So,
Is that true?
The Ravel Dissenter? No, it had one, as far as I can tell, it had one issue and one supplement. Right. So that will digitize in the next couple of weeks and try and put up.
So to find these online, where do we go?
So you can find them online. You can, if you're in Roger, the UCSD online catalog, you can check by title.
Okay.
Or if
But
you
if
want,
we're off campus?
if you're off campus, you can get into the UCSD catalog and use UCSD catalog, which is called Roger. Just go UCSD, if you're Googling UCSD library catalog, that will take you there.
Is that after Roger?
That's what I
It's
was
named
thinking.
after Roger Ravel.
Yeah.
Roger
Roger
Ravel,
Ravel.
so sorry. I'm sure, let Roger think, Roger show.
Roger has a hand in most
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I know. But if you want to see other publications, like a lot of the usually very short-lived literary publications that were done by students, plus a lot of things that have been written by others about the university and thousands of photographs, you can go to the UCSD catalog. It's a special website. You can Google it. It's just History of UCSD or History of UC San Diego, and look at it as much as you like. And you can always come and look still at the paper copies if you want, which has seemed to be a revelation to some of today's Guardian folks about what the Triton Times looked like in the beginning.
I just want to say I didn't, I saved my Triton Times for many years, schlepped them from here to there. And then they yellowed and we were moving and needed to clean out the garage, and I asked my daughter, who lives down here part of the time, to please take them to the library. I'm sure she put them in the trash. So I was
The content is safe.
I was so pleased to see that they're online, because I
Oh,
had
good,
very
I'm
few
glad.
memories from that year. So I thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's your paper.
Okay.
They're your publication.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Actually, I printed out the index. There's 20 different student newspapers, and including, well, from the years that most of us were here. There was the Indicator from 1966 to 70, and Dimension, which was a conservative paper from 71 to 2. Something called the Crazy Times from 71 to 2. Anybody remember that? The Crazy Times?
I remember seeing it online.
I remember it happened a lot in the Triton Times office.
And in 75, 76, there was Natty Dread.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Then there was a New Indicator from 76 to 04. North Star from 73 to 74. Prensa Popular, 73 to 5. The Rebel Times in 1966. Sanskrit, 65 to 66. Third World in 70 to 71. And then the Triton Times, 67 to 78. And then the Guardian from 78 to now. So the Guardian was our successor, and so it's really, this one paper has been published consecutively since 1966. Oh, there was one called the Strike Daily that had 6 issues. Anyway, we have the privilege of having the man here, the man who started all this. I'd like to introduce Randy Sen. He started the Triton Times. He was the editor the first year, and he's going to tell us a bit about how it happened.
Really being aware of this campus that has so few things for the students that many people take for granted when they go to school. One of those things was a newspaper. There was the Indicator, and the Indicator was really a political rag. It was not really a newspaper. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know who was doing it, or why they were doing it, or what they did. So it was important to create a communications organ that would help people appreciate what was going on the campus. I also was informed that there had been a half a dozen or more publications in the year before I was thinking of starting the newspaper. Why should there be so many publications that came and left? And there, one issue in a supplement, one issue in a supplement, and a diatribe, and then it was over. And so not wanting to join that illustrious group of almosts, I did for a year some research on what it was that made them all fail, to see if there was something I could see before I asked anybody to join me. And what I discerned from having spent a good deal of time with different newspaper editors or people who work in the newspaper that came and went was that they seemed to have one thing in common. Everybody was making the same mistake of being attracted to the sexiest part of a newspaper. And what's that? The first edition. So everybody was absolutely gung-ho with creating the newspaper and doing the stories and doing the photographs and the editorials and the graphics and the masthead. This was all just great. Well, of course, the final push for that last edition is always a fire drill, no matter what you do. And so when this was finally out the door, there was no glue to keep everybody together. They were all spent. And because of the rigors of school at Ravel, everybody just sort of went their own way and said, "Oh, that was fun, we'll never do that again." And so what I did was spend the last part of 1966 through about February of 1967 building an organization that happened to print a newspaper. So it had the glue to sustain itself. And then, I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but it turned out to be something that at least enables us to all be in this room and talk about more than one issue. But that's actually how it started. I had no previous newspaper experience. I am convinced ignorance is a major component of human business. Because if I'd known, I would have said, oh. So thank you all for being here, the people who were the older generation, who were the ones making this possible, and the newer generation, which is sustaining it. Thank you all, because I can't tell you how moving it is for me to be amongst all of you. Thank you.
Well, introduce yourself. Maybe just say your name and what year you worked on the Triton Times, maybe if you were the managing editor or whatever. So, and the Guardian people too. You want to start over here?
Hi, I am Rhonda Shankar, and I am the managing editor of the UCSD Guardian right now.
Hi, I'm Natalie Dupre. I'm a writer for the lifestyle section of the Guardian right now.
Hello, my name is Shafrin Alam, and I'm one of the arts and entertainment editors of the UCSD Guardian right now.
I'm Alicia Bunawan. I'm the data visualization editor right now.
Hi, I'm Chloe Esser. I'm the other arts and entertainment editor for the Guardian right now.
I'm Alex Ricard, and I'm the design editor.
I'm Laura Sanley, and I'm the features editor.
And I'm Susie Scott. I'm the current editor-in-chief.
Welcome. We're really glad to have you here.
There's a copy, but it is online if you wanted to check it out. What was the title for it, Alicia?
It was like AS funding allocation or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Cami, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Cameron Sherrick. I'm from Alaska. I came and did 4 years here from 1969 to 1973. I worked on the Triton Times all 4 years. My second year, I was assistant managing editor, third year, managing editor, fourth year, editor.
Okay. And Bob?
Yeah, I was the Dean of Student Activities way back when. And so basically I was the advisor for the Triton Times, for the Sanskrit. And we had the Communications Council to remember, because I don't know how the Guardian works out in terms of finance, but they're pretty much self-funding.
Entirely self-funded.
Well, back then, you had to have money in some way to keep these papers going, so there was always this demand from the AES, UCSD, to fund them in some way.
We had to support ourselves.
You had to support
Yeah,
yourself.
there was only one source
So
of
the
money.
indicator,
Indicator was got all the money.
well, here's the thing, is that because the other ones wanted a piece of the action, so here comes the Communications Council
Yeah.
Bob, what's your last name?
to follow that.
Cohen. I don't remember if I was I thought it was just my senior year, but it might have been my junior and senior year. I was the political cartoonist and other artwork in the paper.
From 66 to 71. I was Steve Landau's roommate the second year and got dragged into the newspaper. I don't know how that happened. But I thought I reviewed classical music concerts and stuff like that. But there's no evidence that I did that. but the one thing I guess I did, because my name's attached, is every week I had an eye on the media column where I summarized news events around the country, and I don't remember that at all. Go figure.
Nothing was happening back then.
How long have you been doing lights and sirens? It looked like a very interesting section on page 2.
Oh, yeah.
Police blotter.
Yeah, police blotter.
The police blotter. We didn't have enough students too many people to get in trouble. I noticed a very interesting item here that a reporting party has not heard from son tonight, requesting son give her a call. Is this a service for Jewish mothers?
Lights and siren have been going on since the entire time that I've been here. Do you guys know exactly when it started? No, but so at least for the last 4 or 5 years, because it's been in every issue. And it's not like a regular thing. We usually publish it about once a quarter, maybe twice a quarter, if anything interesting.
A lot more activity than when we were here.
Well, we were always very well behaved.
Right, we were very good people.
Okay, Bob?
So I'm Bob Torby. I was the sports editor my sophomore year before I transferred up to UC Santa Barbara. And the story, this was in 1968, 1969. And the story I remember, we had a visit from President Johnson. And so we had a front page article about that visit. And in that headline it says, President Johnson pays surprise with no R and a Z instead of an S, visit to campus. And during our review of that issue, our advisor said, you know, we all looked at this front page, everyone in the newspaper looked at it several times, and no one ever caught it.
Managing editor and news editor. I recall one year we did cut and paste for reels, so so I have evidence of what happens when you cut a little bit wrong. You have to make sure not to put the blood on the newspaper.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my story.
I don't have anything that painful. My name is Mark Stadler. I was at UCSD. I was the first class of Warren College when it was fourth college, before they changed the name without consulting anybody. And what a surprise. I started out as a cub reporter, then I became community news editor. Yeah, we still called him that then. A community news editor, then managing editor, then senior editor my last year, and that was the, I never thought of it this way before, but that was the last year of the Triton Times. And I can tell the story about it.
Good, we want to hear that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Molly?
Yeah, so I'm Molly Selvin. The name tag says I was on the Triton Times from 69 to 72. I have no idea what I did in 69 and 70.
A lot of us are in that boat.
I'll look at the issues. I was editor-in-chief 71, 72 when I was a junior. And yeah, and this is my husband Dave, who graciously came. So
And I'm Steve Lando, you probably don't know that. I was editor in 69-7. I just wanted to introduce my wife, Julie.
Hi, it's nice to be here, and I promise I won't tell too many stories. Very good.
And I'm really glad she came to see all my old buddies here. And maybe she'll believe some of my stories.
67 to 71, and I think that I was a couple of years on the Triton staff in doing art stories. Terry Barrett was my editor. Terry's here, and he'll introduce that. But when I heard that the Guardian's still doing arts, we thought that was really important because students always sort of like politics and sports, but arts was something that we thought we could really do to help them sort of tune in. And so we had a really robust arts section in the Triton Times all those years.
Yeah, hi, I'm Terry Barrett. I was the arts editor my junior year and the business manager my senior year, which was 71, 72. And like Jay said, it was fun getting, putting arts news and arts opinions and things related to the arts or artistic views of other things, of current events in the paper. Enjoyed doing that, and so nice to see that all of this has lived on and grown. And I think we did, was it 2 papers a week back
Yeah,
then?
we did.
2 papers.
Eventually,
Tuesday
and Friday.
Right. Yeah, so.
And I don't know how we did, looking back on that, I don't know how the hell we did.
Yeah, you really evolved your daily.
And my wife Sandy came along to lead our
Provide some beauty to the situation.
Okay, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Freed, and I preceded Terry in 69 and 70 as arts editor and then business manager. It seems like it's a generic thing that just happens. And of course, that was a very political time here, and there was a lot of things happening in 71.
I'm McKenna Johnson. I'm a photographer for The Guardian.
Okay. Paul?
I'm Paul Emus. I was at Revell from 67 to 71. And then I went on and got a master's in communications at Fullerton and worked for weeklies and a daily, and then was an Army journalist, and then did some teaching, and finally retired from the county. But and now I play with my drones. I have a little drone here, and I have a website, YouTube, Paul Emus, YouTube Paul Emus. You can see all my beautiful 4K videos.
Okay. In listening to the fact that you came out with newspapers twice a week, 3 times a week, daily, we came out once every 2 weeks. And the second week was always chaotic. We pasted up the newspaper and had to deliver it, pasted up, ready, camera ready, and it was always 3 o'clock in the morning of the day publication, always. And you could set your watch by it. Well, one day we finished at 11, and everybody was saying, well, we finally figured out what we're doing. This is great. We now know how to put the newspaper together. Wait. I have an awful feeling that we're missing something important. And we were. We had forgotten the front page. The paper arrived at 3 a.m.
Same time.
Is that in the bound volume?
No, the actual front page exists there. I was tempted to leave it blank just to say we will never do this again. Hey, Roger.
We're still in time for this panel.
Oh, thank you.
Ronnie?
How are you, young man?
He was one of the founders, along with Rennie.
I'm Roger Scholes, came from the Golden Triton Society inauguration for 50-year classes, and so as part of this, Steve decided to have a Triton Times reunion and a meeting with the current students at The Guardian, our renamed successor. And Rennie had started the newspaper the spring of 1967, and I had been working off and on for The Indicator, which was a failing newspaper. And so I joined him and some others, and we came up with the, have you already discussed all this?
Yeah,
Oh.
but you say it from your side.
Oh, I was just
I've
gonna say,
got some
it took
evidence
us,
here.
a month to put together the first issue, and we collapsed, and I started up again in the fall of 1967 on a every other week schedule in the newspaper, until the spring of 1968 when we went weekly, I think. So, in the Jumping Heads, the paper became bi-weekly a few years later, and then for a few times it was daily in the 70s, then it backed off to being weekly later on. So that's where the Guardian is today. And the Guardian the name was changed in 1978, I think.
Why?
We're gonna get into that, it's coming.
I don't know.
We've got two guys who know that story.
So that's,
Okay.
pick up where you left, where I interrupted.
Thank you.
Well, we're just kind of going along with his, Rennie told how it, really started. I didn't realize so much research went into this. That's pretty impressive. I think most of the papers, somebody said, let's publish a paper, and they just sort of went into it. And that's probably why they didn't succeed, right?
I think so.
So, I joined the paper. I wasn't there for the very first, but I was there the first year. I was just, in fact, Roger was briefly my roommate, and he enlisted me to come over and do it. I had never worked on a newspaper in high school or anything, so I was a staff writer for Roger. And then the next year, I was the news editor, while Roger went to Hong Kong for a year. And then 69, 70, I was the editor-in-chief. And I actually hung around a little bit into 71 too, because of the Triton Times it was a full-time job for me for about 2 years. I didn't have enough credits, so I went into 71. So, picking up on what Randy was telling you, so we had the Indicator, and they had a communications board that was in charge of all the student, was supposedly overseeing this thing of newspapers and other. Roger, jump in anytime if you want to add anything. The Indicator was very opinionated. I mean, it was run by the more radical students.
Well, how the heck was Roger on this staff?
No, he wasn't on their staff.
You said you worked on the Indicator?
I did at the beginning, but as a freshman.
Before you knew any better?
Before I knew any better.
So,
It's not a good place, so.
So for a while, we really competed with the Indicator. We competed for money. Finally, I think just because we grew so much and we were publishing regularly, that we became the student newspaper. We convinced the comm board that we were the student newspaper for everybody, all points of view. They could, so they gave us the most money from that point on. The Indicator got something, and later on, there was a right-wing newspaper called Dimension. It only lasted a couple of years, but we pretty firmly established ourselves as the campus newspaper. And the year I was editor was a pretty exciting year because lots of student protests. They took over Earring Hall. Herbert Marcuse was a professor here, and he was a philosopher, and he was, I think they called him the New Left or something. But the students in France around that time, students were rioting for something, and they were carrying Marcuse's book like it was, Chairman Mao. Yeah. But because of that, it made the university very controversial because here we were in San Diego, which in those days was completely red, I guess you'd say. It was a very conservative community, and the Union Tribune was, and they really didn't like this university up there up on the hill. They thought we were a bunch of pinkos or commies, and there were moves to get rid of Marcuse because he was a communist, really, and a Marxist or something. But the university managed to keep him on, and Angela Davis was
don't know if you guys have heard of these people, but Angela Davis was his PhD, studied under him, and there was also an attempt to get rid of her. So there were just, it was really exciting to be on this paper then because there was so much trouble all the time. There were student protests.
Let me jump in for a second. Steve won't want to do his own horn, but what happened was in between the summer of 1969, Steve went to UCLA to work on the UCLA Daily, and out of that he learned all of the things you need to be a successful newspaper: design, writing, management. So he came back with a completely different approach to running the newspaper, which I think was the turning point in making the Triton Times a great student newspaper that it is today. So we didn't. Well, did you major in journalism? I said, we don't have such a thing in the University of California. They don't believe in trades. They believe in thinking. So we had to, I don't know if you knew this, but we had to invent the whole business of the student newspaper without knowing how to do it. Almost nobody on our staff at the beginning had ever been on a high school newspaper. And so we kind of, and Bob Ballback was one of the helpers.
I don't know anything either.
But he sort of guided us along, and Rennie did a huge amount of effort trying to understand how to run it as a business as well as journalistically. So
And then he left after the first year, so we're...
Yeah.
Steve, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Angela Davis, but I think she's a character in the movie Black Klansman.
She is.
Yeah, so if you Google Black Klansman and you see that movie, you'll have some understanding of Angela Davis.
She was just in conservative Alabama, where I live, besides New York. They were putting her in, there's a big civil rights museum there. And some of the very conservative people didn't want her in it, but it got overridden, and she is in the Civil Rights Museum. But she was famous worldwide.
Yeah.
Remember she had
She
huge
ran for
afro.
Yeah. She ran for president on something like the Socialist Workers Party.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway,
I think add something here. We're putting footnotes on this.
That's fine.
Narrative, I think, but I want the contemporary journalists to hear this. That there's a lot of harassment of Marcuse, and you think that today's people harassing people is new. It's not. Somebody called up the Bell system, which was monolith in those days. All phone systems were through the Bell system, and they asked if my phone be disconnected. And what was your name? Herbert Marcuse. So the phone company disconnected Herbert Marcuse's phone.
My God.
And they were just able to do that back in the day. And of course he had to get it reinstated, but that level of harassment in the community, and then of course the establishment was trying to get rid of him as a tenured professor. So it was not a pretty era at all. There was a lot of tension.
And when Reagan came in, especially, there was an effort to get rid of Marcuse. In fact, I think they did get him to sort of resign or something, or retire, because I think they succeeded finally in.
I think what they did is they changed the requirement that you had to retire as a professor at the age of 65, regardless of your quality of work. Wow. So not only did he lose his tenureship, but everybody else, all the older faculty, lost it as well because they wanted to get rid of him. So the whole university system was tightened down to get rid of one person. And although I have to say, since I'm not a radical, it also was, you have to remember that they were his group. He and Angela Davis were super left. I mean, it really was almost a communist kind of a feeling about what they had in mind for the university. Taking it over, Marxists, they were going to take over everything, change all the rules. It was just kind of a revolutionary approach, which some students would support that, but the vast majority would not. The silent majority, So there was a lot of tension on the campus created by that group in the philosophy department, and in the newspaper, Triton Times newspaper, we were constantly trying to be even-handed about everything.